The unjust sentence. Armin was a man who had never imagined himself behind bars. A small business owner, a father, and a husband, his life was simple, honest, and free of trouble. But fate had other plans. One evening, as he was closing his shop, the police stormed in, their faces unreadable. Before he could ask what was happening, they placed him in handcuffs. The charge? Murder, a crime he hadn't committed. The trial was swift, almost as if it had been predetermined. Evidence was fabricated, witnesses bribed, and Armin's pleas ignored. His lawyer tried to fight, but against a system that thrived on corruption, the battle was already lost. The judge's gavel struck the desk. 10 years in prison, he declared, his voice emotionless. As Armin was led away, he turned to look at his wife, who sat in the courtroom, her hands trembling. His son, too young to understand, clutched at her dress. He wanted to say something, to promise he would return, but the words never came. The prison gates loomed ahead, and with each step, Armin felt the weight of injustice settle over him. He wasn't just being punished for a crime he didn't commit. He was being abandoned by a system that had never intended to protect him, the prison hierarchy. The first thing Armin learned about prison was that it had its own set of rules. The second thing he learned was that survival was not guaranteed. From the moment he stepped inside, he was marked. A newcomer, a man without alliances, an easy target. The prison was divided into groups, each controlling different aspects of life behind bars. The most dangerous of them all was Rafiq's gang. Rafiq had been inside for over 15 years. His power was absolute, extending beyond the inmates to the very guards who were supposed to keep order. Drugs, weapons, favors. Nothing moved inside the prison without his knowledge. Armin tried to stay neutral. He avoided trouble, followed the rules, and kept his head down. But in a place like this, silence was seen as weakness. "Hey, new guy." A man approached him in the mess hall, his smile anything but friendly. "Rafiq wants a word." Armin hesitated, but knew refusing wasn't an option. He followed the man to a table where Rafiq sat, his gaze cold, calculating. "You're new," Rafiq said, his voice quiet but full of authority. "Which means you don't know how things work." Armin remained silent. "In here, you survive by choosing a side. You can work with me, or you can work against me, and trust me, you don't want the second option." Armin's jaw tightened. "I just want to do my time and get out." Rafiq chuckled, shaking his head. "That's not how it works." Armin walked away, but he knew that refusing Rafiq had sealed his fate. The first warning. It started small. His food was stolen from his cell, his blanket was torn. Then the threats began, whispered warnings in the dark. One night as he returned from his work duty, he found his mattress slashed open, his few belongings destroyed. A message had been carved into the wall. "Choose wisely." The guards ignored his complaints. Some even smirked. He realized then that Rafiq's influence reached far beyond the prisoners. Junaid, an older inmate who had been inside for decades, took pity on him. "You should have just accepted his offer," he told Armin one night. "Now he sees you as a problem." "I'm not afraid of him," Armin said. Junaid sighed. "Then you're a fool." A few days later, Armin was ambushed in the shower block. 4 men. He fought, but they were stronger. When the guards finally arrived, they only watched as he bled on the floor. Rafiq visited him in the infirmary. "Last chance," he whispered. "Or next time, no one will find your body." Armin stared at him, his face bruised, but his resolve intact. "Do your worst." Rafiq smiled. "I will." The final night. Armin spent the next few weeks looking over his shoulder. He knew something was coming. The attacks stopped, but that only made him more uneasy. Junaid tried to convince him to seek protection. "You can't fight them alone," he warned. But Armin refused. He wouldn't submit, no matter what. Then, one night, everything changed. The prison was quiet, locked down for the night. Armin lay awake in his cell when he heard footsteps approaching. His door creaked open before he could react. Hands grabbed him, pulling him into the dark corridor. He fought, but the grip was too strong. He was dragged into the showers, the same place he had been attacked before Rafik stood there, his expression calm. Behind him, 3 men held knives. "I told you this would happen," Rafik said. "You could have been one of us. Now you're just an example." Arman spat blood onto the floor. "You'll never win," Rafik smirked. "I already have." The first knife entered his side, the pain sharp and instant, then another and another, his vision blurred. He collapsed to the floor, his blood mixing with the water from the leaking pipes. As he took his final breath, the last thing he saw was Rafik walking away, his victory, absolute, the cover. The next morning, the guards found his body. The official report labeled it as a gang-related incident. No investigation was launched. No arrests were made. The prison returned to normal. The guards continued taking bribes. Rafik remained in Power Junaid, the only one who cared, watched as Arman's body was taken away. "Another innocent man lost," he whispered outside. Arman's wife received a call. "Your husband died in prison. No explanation, no justice, just silence." She knew deep in her heart that the system had never been meant to protect men like Arman, and now it had stolen him forever. Epilogue: Justice, forgotten. Arman's story became just another tragedy buried within the prison walls. The world moved on. The newspapers didn't report his death. His family grieved, but there was nothing they could do. In the end, prison wasn't just a place for punishment. It was a place where justice died. And Arman, he became just another forgotten name, one of many victims in a system that never cared to listen.